Let's see what's out there.
Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield Presents Let's See What's Out There, a weekly video stream and podcast currently focused on Star Trek Picard Season 3, which is available to watch on Amazon Prime and Paramount Plus. My name's Keith Isles, and as ever I am joined by
Pete Neely.
And we are both film and television enthusiasts. And in today's episode, we are going to have a spoiler-filled conversation around parts 2 and 3 of season 3, titled Disengage and 17 Seconds. So we're back, Pete, after sadly missing a week, which was my fault.
No.
As I was away. How are you?
Yeah, I am good. I'm glad to be here to talk about my favorite thing.
Oh, well, okay. I was going to say, I'm obviously we've not spoken yet, but some interesting thoughts at the end of part 1, which we discussed, and in the last one, as you can tell, I've been really trying hard to emulate the 25th century Star Trek lighting in my environment today. You know, maybe I should just turn them down a little bit lower.
Yeah, if you want, I could close the blinds in my house too, and we could really get the feel going.
Absolutely. If anybody's watching and you're new to this, welcome. Please do consider checking out some of the other work on this channel. Obviously, we've covered other episodes of Picard on here. We've also looked at various film and television franchises. We've run everything from vodcasts like this right through to interactive live streams. So please check those out. Also, there's a lot of reviews for physical home media releases as well on this channel, which does include some for Star Trek as well, the movies and whatever. So check that out. If you like this sort of thing, please do show that appreciation. Just hit that thumbs up, give us a like, consider subscribing to the channel. And because we put content out in all sorts of random periods, if you hit the bell icon, you'll get noted as and when, and it really would. And if you're listening on the podcast as well, please consider giving us a like or a review there, because it really does help the channel to get recognized. And apparently I don't push this sort of thing enough. So with that out of the way, we're going to get into this. Again, if you're new, we do have a little bit of a sort of agenda that we try and stick to, remembering that this is all just a bit of fun as far as we're concerned. So we've had the spoiler warning. We do cover the episode, or episodes in this case, in a little bit of a synopsis overview. We look at some of the production credits. We talk about some of the fun stuff like Easter eggs and references and connections to other properties, etc. We have a little bit of speculation as to where we think this might be going, and then we really get into it with our personal thoughts, nitpicks, and our rank pin rating. So that is kind of the agenda for this show. Pete, I just wanted to ask you about this before we get into it. We had a bit of Star Trek news only yesterday while we're recording this. And that is that Star Trek Discovery Season 5, which was essentially in the can, is actually going to be the final season. The show has been cancelled by Paramount. They are bringing the cast and crew back to try and do some sort of proper finale to the series. But yeah, Paramount have had to make cuts, as many streaming services have recently, and Star Trek Discovery is one of the casualties of that. I just wondered, Pete, how do you feel about that? We started, obviously we've covered Star Trek Discovery to an extent, but
I think we stopped right around the end of season 3, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is the thing that brought, you know, Star Trek back to the small screen at least. And Yeah, I just wondered. I've got some thoughts, but I just wonder what your feelings were on that first of all.
My feelings are that Discovery did, what some people thought was impossible, right? Which was bringing Star Trek back to television, and they really deserve a lot of credit for it. Not only did they come back and they ran 5 seasons, they survived the transition from CBS All Access to Paramount Plus, um, and they launched Strange New Worlds as well. And there's rumors that there's a Section 31 show that was going to launch, but COVID got in the way. So I really think that all credit goes to them, and I don't see this as a bad thing. I think that the show has run its course. Not all shows go forever, and I don't think this should be looked at as like a punitive or a slam. This is, hey, this is the time for this to end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it ran
and
for 5 seasons, so it still ran for longer than the original series and Enterprise. Although
yeah,
to be fair, there were fewer episodes per season, so I don't know what the actual episode count is, but it's probably slightly less. But yeah.
fewer episodes per season, but greater greater budget. They did better things. So I feel like everyone involved with Discovery should be really proud. The people who really liked it should be happy. And those of us who didn't like it or didn't like parts of it should be thankful for what it did.
Yeah.
Which was revitalized my favorite intellectual property.
No, absolutely. I mean, yes, there's online, the discourse online. There are, of course, a lot of Discovery haters out there. I'm not one of them. Absolutely, it did relaunch Star Trek from the big screen that we had with the the Kelvin films, onto the small screen with this again, and we definitely wouldn't have Strange New Worlds, which is one of my favorite Star Trek shows. Well, after the first season, at least, one of my favorite Star Trek shows ever. We wouldn't have that if it weren't for Discovery. I need to give Discovery a bit more of a chance because I did the first 3 seasons, religiously, and we covered season 3 right here on this channel if anyone wants to check that out. But I have to say that season 4, when I got Paramount Plus finally, when it came to the UK, I delved straight into Strange New Worlds and got totally hooked on that. And I tried season 4 of Discovery and I couldn't really get into it, so I kind of dropped. So essentially, there are 2 seasons of Star Trek Discovery out there for me to discover. No pun intended. And but I think I was trying to sort of boil down sort of what my problems with Discovery were, because I did have some, and I think that what they did well, I think they did the characters well, and the sort of the emotional and the character development. I particularly liked both Michael Burnham and Saru as characters, which were obviously in that right from the start of the show. What I think they did really badly was the storytelling. We've talked a lot about this, I know. That there were things that they did in terms of dare I say it, canon, which were caused a raised eyebrow. And I thought when they got to the 32nd century for season 3, I thought that was going to be an absolute lease of life for it, and it was going to really make the show something special. And unfortunately, season 3, I had a lot of problems with the storytelling there, as I said, which we've covered in some depth. And I feel that the whole thing dealing with the burn and whatever in that season didn't really work, and I kind of found that was a bit of a letdown. But at the same time, I appreciate there's a lot of moving parts to any show like this, and I'm sure one of the reasons that that Paramount have decided in their cutbacks to if you like, shelve this one is only from the point of view that it did have 5 seasons, which for any show nowadays is decent. Gone are the days with 7 to 10 seasons of 24 episodes and all that sort of thing. That doesn't happen in the streaming world. And the other thing is the show is massively expensive to produce.
Yeah.
So, and because we've got multiple Star Trek shows on at once now, something had to give, and I guess they thought that Discovery had a fair crack with 5 seasons, and I'm pleased to hear that they're going to try and finish off the storyline. Rather than going into the 6th season, they're going to try and finish it off, which is good. But I just thought I'd bring that up because it was a bit of Star Trek news that literally came up yesterday, and I wondered whether you'd seen that yet and what you thought.
Yeah, actually, I was concerned that I hadn't. When you just said, "Oh, there's Star Trek news," I was like, "Oh, there's Star Trek news." What I missed, and then you said that, and I was like, "Oh no, I did read that story." Yeah, okay, I just checked. Yeah, moved on.
Exactly, and I know there's been, on the other point you made, yes, there's been lots of rumors about other Star Trek shows, like a Section 31 show and a Starfleet Academy show and a Khan show and even a 4th movie. There's been all these sort of things. Whether or not those are going to come to fruition, who knows? But I think the other news was that Strange New Worlds has been definitely picked up for a 3rd season, which I'm really happy about. And of course, we've still got Lower Decks and Prodigy on the go, and we've still got 7 more episodes after this of Picard, which I suppose we should get into, right?
Yeah.
So, on that note, engage.
Okay. Episode 2. We flash back to Jack having a somewhat smugglerish conversation with a Fenris Ranger who leaves and alerts the marked woman. Back to today. Riker and Picard and the Crushers are in trouble. The mystery ship is pounding on the Crusher ship. Shaw wants to take the Titan and leave. Seven convinces him to be the hero. He saves the day just in time, but now the Titan is face to face with a monster bad guy ship. Meanwhile, Raffi decides to investigate the Daystrom theft, even though her handler said not to. She connects with her ex-husband and trades contact with her son for a connection with the underground. She goes to a Ferengi who admits that the official story is bogus, but he'd rather kill Raffi and steal her money than talk to her, up until he gets a batleth in the neck. And Worf is on the scene. He is the handler. Back on Titan, we meet the captain of bad guy ship who smokes and is awesome. She wants Jack Crusher, hand him over, and the Titan goes free. Shaw is about to let him go. Jack is about to volunteer. But then Picard puts 1 and 1 together with a subtle nod from Beverly and figures out that Jack is his son. So naturally, Shaw does a wild 180 and tries to run away. We'll have to see how it works right now. Episode 3. The Titan is in trouble. The other ship has an amazing ability to track them, even though it shouldn't be able to in the nebula. Captain Shaw hands over command to Riker. Picard wants Riker to attack, but Riker wants to get the crew home safely. Jack and 7 of 9 find that the ship is leaking MacGuffin gas, and there's been a saboteur on board. 7 goes to fix the leak, but the saboteur finds Jack and beats him up. There's something very strange about the saboteur. Back on Matlas Prime, Worf and Raffi track down a ruffian who turns out to be a changeling. The transport weapon was just a diversion for some changeling extremists to do something else. But what? The changeling tries to escape, but Jem'Hadar lament everywhere. Worf kills him. The dynamic duo will need to investigate what is going on. On the Titan, there's some discussion of Beverly and Picard's relationship, how Beverly got pregnant, ran away 20 years ago, but also Jack had school in London, which accounts for his accent, I guess. And blah, 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 emotional baggage, emotional baggage. More importantly, Captain Bad Guy has the transport weapon on her ship, and she keeps using it to draw the Titan back into the nebula when it tries to escape. Riker retreats but wants to use the advantage of the repaired sabotage to fully escape. Riker says we must attack. The time comes, the attack fails, Riker kicks Picard off the bridge, and it looks like the Titan is doomed. We will have to wait for next time to see how they get out of this mess.
Yeah, a lot happened, didn't it?
Quite a bit happened.
I did like the term MacGuffin gas. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah. I'll tell you one of the things that kind of amused me. They've done it 2 episodes in a row now. Is obviously they have a little bit of a flashback, but then when they come back, they say present day, and I think, yeah, well, hold on a second. It was season 2 of Picard that took place in 2023, right? That's, yeah. No, a lot to cover there, and well, some quite exciting stuff. But before we get into it, time to just pay a little bit of homage to our behind the scenes crew. So let's make it so. Alrighty, so obviously we've got 2 parts to cover here, which makes this slide busier than usual. So part 2 was also directed by Douglas Aronofsky, who we talked about last time because he also directed part 1 as well. And part 3 was directed by Jonathan Frakes, which really we don't need to sort of go into his credits or say too much about, because the man is a legend, and it speaks for itself, right? So, you know, both in front of and behind the camera for this.
Yeah, if you've made it to this point in the show and are slightly confused about Jonathan Frakes, you are having a stroke.
You're not watching this show, are you?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
But in terms of writing credits, so part 2, which was Disengage, it was written by Christopher Monfetti and Sean Tetra. We've probably talked about these guys on previous episodes of this show because they did do some writing in other seasons. So specifically, Christopher is, as I said, he's worked on Picard. He worked on 12 Monkeys as a story editor with obviously our showrunner Terry Matalis on that. He worked on 911. So he's done a few things there, and as I said, has worked on previous seasons of Picard. As for Sean Tetra, looking at Sean's credits, he is writer and producer. In terms of previous work, he has been the executive producer on Death of a Ghost Hunter, The Prometheus Project, The Greatest American Snuff Film, M is for Matchmaker, 12 Monkeys, again, no surprise there, and Mayans. So he's got some recognizable credits to his name as well. And then again, I know we've definitely talked about these 2 ladies before, because they've written for some of the other shows, possibly Discovery, actually, and that is Cindy Appel and Jane Maggs, who are the writers or the credited writers for part 3, which is called 17 Seconds. So looking at their work, Jane, she has worked in the writing on a number of things, going back to the television series Bellevue, Mary Kills People, and with an E, and supervising producer on The Man Who Fell to Earth. In terms of Picard, she's been involved in 17 of the episodes throughout seasons 2 and now into season 3. So that's fantastic. And finally, Cindy Appel, or Appel, yeah, I guess that's pronounced. Yeah. Again, writer, has been in the industry working on things like Hope and Gloria as a writer's assistant, That was back in the late 90s. Over the Top, The King of Queens, According to Jim, Desperate Housewives, We Are Men, Young and Hungry, and Heartbeat. And I'm sure that she's been also on. Yes, I was going to say, I'm sure her name has come up previously on Picard, and it has indeed, as well as writing for like Desperate Housewives and MacGyver. She has also been responsible for 3 of the episodes in season 2 of Picard as well. So so there you go. The same team coming back from previous episode or previous seasons. So there you go. I have to say, we'll get into what we think later, but in terms of writing and the sort of general direction of everything, it seems so far, after only 3 parts, but much tighter. But we'll get into that. First, it's time for a drink, yeah. So let's go.
Mine is actually tea Earl Grey hot today.
Oh, yours is. You see, mine says it on the mug, thanks to Graham, but I am a complete liar because it is actually very much Janeway inspired
Coffee.
black coffee. But this was given to me by one of our other co-hosts on the show, Graham Williams, so which I do appreciate. So here we go. Tea Earl Grey hot. Right, Pete, before I bring any slides up, I just wondered, you got any things that sort of sprung out to you in these two episodes that you want to point out?
One, in episode 3, I saw an engineering guy wearing a uniform that looked very much like the Enterprise uniform from Enterprise. Did you catch that or no?
Oh, is this where it just had piping here?
It just has the piping.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Interesting. I hadn't actually thought of that, but that's quite now you mention it. Yes. Okay.
I was like, ooh, hey, look. Yeah, well, because I always really liked the Enterprise uniforms. Anyway, I saw that. At one point, sorry, I didn't make a note of which episode it was, 2 or 3, but somebody pulls a phaser and it just looks like a gun that they stuck space stuff on. And I was like, that's interesting. That is a big change.
I think I know the one you mean. I was going to bring this up. I don't have a picture of it, but I did think in the last episode, 17 seconds, we see a phaser pistol that Raffi's using. And
that is a pistol.
You know, I'm like obviously a big James Bond fan, and it kind of made me think, oh, is this the 25th century version of a Walther PPK, but crossed with a chromed knuckle duster?
Yeah.
But yes, yeah, I thought that as well.
And that it annoyed me.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah, it annoyed me. Because that was one of Roddenberry's things, right? The guns shouldn't look like guns because they're not. It's not whatever. Okay.
Did you also notice on that subject that when again, I'm totally jumping ahead here, but when Worf vaporized the changeling, he kind of did it with a next gen DS9 era phaser?
I did not notice that.
Oh, right. That was something I was like, oh.
It was probably too dark for me to pick that up in the wide shot. Okay. And then I don't know if this is like noticed or goes in speculation, but on the Shrike, the big monster bad guy ship,
yes,
we've been seeing bridge crew who are speaking in a translated but not English language.
Yes,
or not Earth language, and all after the changeling reveals, all I could think was like, oh, these are the next gen Jem'Hadar.
Oh, right, yeah, I was thinking the same. Yes,
right, because they've got sort of they're Jem'Hadar.
Yes,
adjacent in terms of their makeup design.
Yes,
and so actually, I kind of like that. Yeah, that's
Okay,
what I saw.
we'll get into that. Okay, well, God, I did pull up a few photos just to remind me of stuff. So yeah, so first stop in the part 3, Jack Crusher at the beginning. Obviously, Jack Crusher named after his father, who appeared in a Next Gen episode. You know, as a sort of recorded message for Wesley. But he had cases of Romulan ale, which is obviously a Star Trek thing. But I noticed that the bottles that they were in were almost exactly the same prop as in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, when Bones brings Kirk a bottle of Romulan ale for his birthday. So I thought, oh yeah, Romulan ale, got to spot that one. That's really good. I've also put a picture up there of Christopher Plummer, who played a Klingon in Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. And the reason I've done that is simply because obviously we've got Amanda Plummer doing an amazing job, you know, in this season as our bad, our big bad at the moment. And she looks like she's having lots of fun with that. But I wondered if, you know, the casting using Christopher Plummer's daughter, you know, is kind of a gentle nod to that. I don't know. They seem to be really.
That's Christopher Plummer's daughter?
Yes. Yeah,
Amanda. I did not
Plummer.
know that.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, it is. I should have maybe been more specific about that at the beginning. But yes.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that's his daughter. So you know, playing a Star Trek villain. Or antagonist, or however we're politically supposed to call bad people these days. And then the other thing, I've got a picture there of now sadly the late Kirstie Alley and Robin Curtis, who both played Savick. And the reason for that was the shuttle that that they took across from the Titan to the Elenos was, we saw when it got destroyed, the panel said shuttlecraft Savick. So there was a nod there to the character of Savick as well, which I thought was pretty cool. The other pictures there might be a bit confusing because they're not actually Star Trek references, but they are 12 Monkeys references, which you know, Terry Matalis was an exec producer on. And the reason I've got both Bruce Willis and Aaron Stanford there is because they both played a character called Jack Cole. And this was one of the aliases that Jack Crusher was using when he gets called out by the captain. And one of the aliases is Jack Cole, which is a reference to, as I said, both the character Bruce Willis played in the movie, in the Terry Gilliam movie, and the same character that was played by Aaron Stanford in the TV series 12 Monkeys. Also, of course, Aaron Stanford appears in this episode as the Ferengi character who gets beheaded. So again, you know, he's appearing in that. And of course, he'd already starred alongside Patrick Stewart in the X-Men franchise where he played Pyro. So so all sorts of weird connections there. What else do we have? I'm just trying to think if I spotted anything else, because there is loads. I mean, this whole show is just like one big Easter egg, isn't it?
Yeah.
But of course, they mentioned Picard's synth body, which you know, is obviously referencing back to the first season of Picard. So they're not ignoring that. They are, you know, mentioning it and then moving on swiftly.
Yeah.
And what else did I note? Anything else down? I didn't really make any other. There was one other thing that I was thinking of, and it's completely, again, this is where I should write things down. It's completely escaped me. There was another little reference in that episode. And then in the next episode, or part 3, which is 17 seconds, I've got a few things here. So first of all, Riker, when he gets the FaceTime call from Deanna,
Yeah.
he refers to her as Inzadi, which was obviously what she called him when they met in Encounter at Farpoint, the first episode of Star Trek Next Generation. But it was also, I used to read some of the Star Trek novels back in the day, some of the expanded ones. And there was a novel called Inzadi written by Peter David that was kind of a backstory as to Riker and Troy's relationship. So that gets a little nod there in this episode. Also, it's well established in Star Trek that models of spaceships exist everywhere, you know, and I just like the fact that 7 of 9 when she was confined to her quarters, we see the Voyager model ship in her. In fact, that's what the shot starts on, and then pans across to her in her quarters. So I think that's quite nice that she's got a little, a little nod to Voyager there, which is great. I'm sure there are lots of things during the conversation with Picard and Beverly that are planets that have probably been used in the show before. Oh, that's just reminded me one of the things I thought of. So something I learned after the last episode that we did was we talked about Metalis Prime being named after obviously our showrunner Terry Metalis. But it wasn't an egotistical thing, because I heard here that this is actually a reference all the way back to Enterprise, because Terry Metalis worked as a production assistant on Enterprise. It was one of his first jobs. And in the writer's room, they needed a name for a planet, which Trip references in one of the episodes. And they called it Metalis Prime. So it is actually not only a nod to the showrunner, but it is also a reference back to Star Trek Enterprise, which I know we both love, right? So
yeah,
I thought that was kind of cool. We had Worf listening to opera, which obviously is one of his things. Again, that's a a pullover from the previous shows, etc. And then I've got a couple of other pictures there. Obviously, I've got the nebula, the ship in the nebula, which of course this has happened many times in Star Trek. Probably most famously in the Wrath of Khan, where they go and hide out in the Matara Nebula, and their sensors and stuff don't work in just the same way as they're doing in this episode. But I've also got Thomas Dekker plays the changeling there. Now, Thomas Dekker, I know him from as playing John Connor in Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles, which was a show that ran for a couple of seasons back in, I think, 2008, and still, in my opinion, is the best sequel to the first 2 Terminator movies by a long way. Unfortunately, it was cancelled with a cliffhanger due to the writers' strike back at that time, which was a shame. But Thomas Dekker also played, I think it was named Tommy Picard in Star Trek Nemesis. Not Nemesis, sorry. In Star Trek Generations, I'll get this right in a minute. In the film Star Trek Generations, when they are in basically they're in the Nexus, and Picard sort of sees an idyllic life where it's Christmas and he's surrounded by children, etc. Thomas Dekker actually played, I think Thomas Picard was the name of the character actually in that film. So I've got a little picture of him there. Bless his cottons. So yeah, those were all the references that I spotted, but I'm sure that there are loads more, right?
I'm sure. Wow.
So Pete, how many lights are you seeing?
There are 4 lights.
I know you love doing that.
I do.
So any speculation, Pete?
We have to start with congratulations to you for accurately calling that Worf was the handler.
Oh, right. I was like, God, did I get something right?
You nailed it. Nailed it. So well done.
Oh,
well
yeah.
done.
Cool. Thank you. It was the comment about a warrior, which is what tipped it for me. I was like, oh, that is such a Worf line. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, you did a great job there because I missed it. Yeah. But okay. No, I do not have predictions. And we can get into that a little bit maybe when we start talking about our general feelings. But
Yeah.
I can't think of anything.
No, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'll be honest, I am just totally enjoying the ride. The only prediction I had was kind of one from last week, and I we know that other members of the crew, predominantly Geordie, is going to turn up at some point, and I'm wondering whether that's going to be
Brent Spiner.
Yes, well, yeah, although I'm a bit confused by that, but anyway, I'm wondering whether that is going to be the way we see the Enterprise F, which obviously we've not seen. The last Enterprise we saw was the the E, which was in First Contact through Nemesis, and I'm just wondering if that's going to be the deal, because they did show it on that monitor in the first episode. So that's really the only thing that I've got, if I'm honest. But yeah.
Okay. I like that. That's a great, good prediction.
Nothing from you?
No.
Right. Let's get into it then. The line must be drawn here.
Did you notice he almost said that line in episode 3?
Yes.
He definitely said "here" at one point, and I was like, "Oh, yeah,
love it."
Yeah.
So, how do you want to do this, Pete? Should we cover an episode at a time, or should we just merge it all into one, or how do you want to?
My thoughts are all lumped into one.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you go first because you surprised. I'll be honest. After episode 1. You surprised me, Pete. I was like, oh, wow, at your reaction. I did not expect that. So
I did not like episode 1. And I will tell you that I absolutely hated most of this show up until the last 10 minutes of episode 3.
Oh,
I could barely get through episode 2 when you cancel, like when scheduling didn't work out and we had to cancel last week. I was like, oh, thank God. Because if I had to do just this episode on episode 2, I would come across as a very, disgruntled basement dweller nerd, because I just thought the whole thing was boring and terrible.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
okay.
As we got into episode 3, I was like, this is just more of the same, and I hate this. And I really, really hate this. And then we got to the last 10 minutes with changelings, and I was like, oh, I'm back in. This is awesome.
All right, well, I mean, before we get there though, we really need to unpack this then. So because I'll be honest, I'm having a very different experience to you with this. I'm actually rather enjoying it, nitpicks aside, and I always have nitpicks. I'm actually quite enjoying it. I realized, one of my stupid theories last week, or last time, should I say, is I think I was getting obsessive about with the whole Jack Crusher being Picard's son, and the actor playing him being in his mid-30s. And this being sort of 22 years after, 23 years after Star Trek Nemesis. I was getting all kind of like, well, how does that work? And But to be honest, it's that old thing, isn't it? Actors can play younger and can play older. I've played younger and I've played older on various films, that I've done. And of course, it's not so much about what the actor's actual age is, it's about what their playing age is and what they can get away with. And whereas I do think he does look older than I'm guessing he should be about 22, 21, 22. At the same time, I don't really have a problem buying it. And you said that you totally bought it last time. Yeah. So
Totally bought it. I thought he was a teenager.
yeah. So that was me putting prejudice there just because I know the actual age of the actor rather than the character that he's playing. And I did like the way it did make me roll my eyes, but not in a palm slappy way, but in a sort of fun way, where they kind of explained that, oh, he was in London in high school in London and the accent stuck. And then she said maybe it's genetic. I thought that was quite
I hated
funny.
that so much.
Oh, did you?
Okay, yeah. I just hated it. I just hated it.
Fair enough.
Anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
You know what they should have done? They shouldn't have addressed it, because when in Next Generation did they ever address that Jean-Luc Picard from France spoke with a British accent?
They addressed it
Never.
They addressed it in season 2 of Picard. Basically,
did they?
Remember they said that his family moved after one of the wars. His family moved to London from France, and they kind of explained it away in a line there, so that he grew up. But yeah, some things they don't need to explain. I mean, it's very similar to them referencing the fact that Picard is positronic now. You know, they're not shying away from the things they've already set up. It's like I was thinking about this with. I won't go all into a long tangent now about Strange New Worlds and whatever, but one of the things I was thinking is, if Strange New Worlds has got any baggage, it's stuff that Discovery set up more than anything else, more than the, you know, being set before anything else or following the cage or any of that stuff. Yeah, with this, I mean, there is a certain amount of things they've had to sort of carry over from the previous seasons, right down to, you know, even the aesthetic and the uniforms. Those were both established in the previous seasons. But yeah, that aside, I'm sad that you're not digging this. Tell me more. Let's talk through what actually happens then before that last 10 minutes that you loved.
So I've been spending some time thinking about this, right? And what I don't like is as follows. One, there feels like a lot of melodrama in this, where they are digging in deep on the emotions of Picard as a father, Beverly and Picard as a romantic couple, Riker as a father, you know, and I just don't care. I don't think they're doing it well enough to engage me. They're not saying anything sort of new. Hey, nice. I said no, yeah, sorry. Didn't even pick it up. That's awesome.
It disengaged you. It did what it said on the tin. You see?
Yeah. Oh, side note about that. Also very disappointed that since episode 1 was called The Next Generation, I was really hoping episode 2 was going to be called Deep Space or Deep Space something, right? And then episode 3 could be called Voyager, right? Or Voyages. Who knows? Anyway, they did, like, they almost had me because Disengage starts with a D, right? And it's like DS, Disengage. But then the third one, nowhere even close to Voyager. So very upset. Anyway, side note. The melodrama, like, you know, and maybe this is just part of me as a person, right? Like, not, it takes a lot for me to get engaged in emotional things, right? And so focusing so much on the emotions of it, and it feels very much like they are not writing a story that brings out emotions. They are writing emotions and tacking story onto it. And so it just annoys me. It annoys me.
Okay.
I think a perfect sort of like juxtaposition of that is that the instant they bring in the Dominion War, right? Like, and a terrorist offshoot of the Dominion War still operating, I'm immediately tense, right? And I immediately feel that, even though I didn't like a lot of Deep Space Nine, like I still watched it and I still know that storyline. And so, they talk, I feel like people are like, oh, well, they're doing all this stuff for fan service. And I'm like, yeah, but here's one where you can use fan service correctly, because as soon as you bring up Dominion War, I'm engaged. I've got my emotions on the line, and I'm like, oh, what's going to happen, right? And I don't know, but I would love to talk to someone who never watched Deep Space Nine and just watched this episode and get their feedback on what that meant to them when they said changelings, and reference this war from Deep Space Nine. They reference Odo, but they don't say his name. Like, loved it. I want to know, right? But you take that and you juxtapose that with the scene of Beverly and Picard arguing about their relationship, and I was like, I don't care about any of this, right?
Really?
I just don't. Yeah.
Because I actually have to say, I thought, just on that subject a moment, I thought that was actually really well written and acted, actually, because the thing I liked was when he said that not only didn't she tell him about it, but she took away his choice about it. And I thought, yeah, okay, that's interesting that you that didn't work for you. Okay.
Didn't work for me. I'm skipping over lots of my own thoughts of fatherhood here, right?
Oh.
And just saying, like, okay, I also feel like that is an absolutely pointless argument, because like you don't get those 20 years back, right? There's nothing he can do to have that. What he needs to do is stop arguing and go talk to Jack, because obviously Jack is upset with him. And I don't feel like we get a lot of Picard Jack interaction here, right? It's immediately Jack is off with 7 of 9. Yeah, you're right. Give it time.
I mean, bearing in mind we're talking about serialized storyline still here, aren't we? So
yeah, but fair, very fair criticism. Also, the Captain Shaw just drives me nuts.
Okay, I have to say I'm warming to him a little bit, because he is different to what we've previously seen as Starfleet captains, right?
And let me be more specific. What drives me nuts is not his character.
Right.
Okay. What drives me nuts is that he is presented through 95% of his screen time as asshole, right? Excuse me. But like, his character is asshole. And why? What do they do to describe that? He follows the rules. That should not be the basis of a bad character.
No,
it
that's
just
true.
shouldn't.
I agree with you there, because obviously the ideals of, I mean, one of the criticisms I've heard about this is it's less optimistic than the Next Generation was. It's more of a pessimistic future, which I think is a fair criticism when people say that.
Absolutely fair. Fair criticism.
Yeah.
And I'd be fine with a pessimistic. Okay, you're right. I'm not fine with a pessimistic Star Trek, but I don't like that. Like, that's how he's portrayed almost every scene, except for he's got 2 major breaks from that, and that is one when he just decides to fight, and it doesn't make, or he decides to run, and it doesn't make any sense to me because, like, the minute before he decides to run, he has the line that I'm going to paraphrase as, "We can't sacrifice 500 people just because that's your ex-girlfriend's son."
Yeah, no, I think that's
And I was
exactly
like,
the line. I think that was exactly what the line was. Yeah.
right, exactly right. And
Yeah.
then 2 seconds later, he implicitly, he doesn't say it, but he then sacrifices 500 people because it's Picard's son. And I'm like, no, that's absolutely ridiculous. He has shown zero interest in Picard as a person. He doesn't revere Picard. He thinks he is an old crazy man, right? And so why then is Picard having a son, right, granted more weight, more respect, more gravity than Beverly Crusher having a son?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, that makes zero sense. He has not shown any regard for Picard, Picard's authority, Picard's legacy, but give that person a son and now you show respect? That's crazy to me. It doesn't make any sense. So, and then drives me up the wall. Halfway through episode 3, they're like, writing for this guy's a pain in the butt. He's got an injury. He resigns. I was literally like, what is happening? What is happening? He's not dead, right? He's just like, oh, I'm very hurt. I resign. Out. No sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he was hurt quite badly, right? And obviously, his senior officer, is second in command, 7, is confined to quarters for insubordination. So the next senior officer was
at that point, isn't she?
Sorry, next senior officer.
She wasn't on the bridge.
No, she wasn't. She was in her quarters. But the next senior officer, is because obviously Riker is still, a captain in Starfleet, right? He's not retired or anything. He is still an acting captain. I have to say, on the Riker thing, I am so pleased that we've got this Will Riker than the scruffy haired and beard wearing an apron making pizza Will Riker that we got in the the first season of Picard. It's just nice to see him in uniform and taking command and kicking ass. It's good to see that. I'm liking that. No,
I did not think he kicked ass. I did not think he took command. It felt very passive,
right?
And the Picard Riker like back and forth. I was somewhat confused. I was like, I don't understand this. I understand Riker wanting to save the ship and making that a priority. Naturally, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few,
or the one,
or the one. But I don't understand how Picard and Riker don't work together here, right? Because the whole thing where Picard was like attack, 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 and Riker was like, no, we got to get out of here. I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me. This doesn't seem like how they would react based on 7 years of Next Generation and all the movies. They were such a close team in all of that, and they worked so well together for all of everything that we've gotten before this. That then to have this conflict right there, I didn't understand it. It didn't ring true to me. It just felt weird.
Okay. What are your feelings on the character of Vadik and the is it called the Shrike? The ship
Shrike?
The Shrike, sorry, yeah.
Is that it? I might be wrong on that.
No, I think you're right. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Love it. Absolutely love it. as soon as she showed up, I was like, this is an interesting bad person, right? I'm in. Yeah, yeah. Show her smoking. Love it. Way better than Alios smoking,
Oh yeah, yeah.
right?
Rios, smoke.
Rios.
Yeah, Rios.
Alios was the ship. Anyway,
Ship
sorry.
Ilios. Yeah.
Uh,
No,
yeah. Loved it. I absolutely loved her. I thought she was dynamic, engaging. She was a classic Star Trek villain, right? She has
mhm.
all of that. And Amanda Palmer is nailing it,
She is nailing it.
right?
Yeah, totally nailing it.
Nailing it. Absolutely loved it.
I mean, she's. I've seen her in a lot of films, and she's one of those actresses that always makes what I call interesting choices. But you know, and I think you know the choices she's making, and clearly they're letting her go with it, which is great. I do think it's refreshing. It's refreshing because it sort of is classic Star Trek antagonist, but not. It's a little bit like I always thought that about, you know, I always go on about how I love Star Trek 2009 and, you know, Eric Banner's Nero. I always had that kind of, you know, he's wired slightly differently. And I think that Vanek, she's got an element of that I'm feeling. So, yeah, really, really liking that a lot.
Yeah.
So
she is bringing so much.
Yeah. So obviously, you know, we've got A and B story going on here, and I think you know they're going to eventually merge, I'm sure. I'm really liking what Michelle Hurd's doing, and you know with the Raffi character in this season. But I have to say, until Worf showed up, I was getting a little bit kind of when we switched to Metalis Prime, I kind of wanted to go back to the Titan. You know, I don't know whether you were feeling that.
Good too.
Yeah.
No, I didn't want to go back to the Titan because I hated the storyline of the Titan, right? And when it was just Raffi, I was like, this is very one note and monotonous.
Mm-hmm.
And so like they're banging that one note hard, and I stopped caring halfway through episode 2. And then when Worf showed up, I was like, okay, let's see.
Oh.
Interesting.
Oh. Yeah. It's all right. You dipped out for a second, but you're back. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. But then Worf and Raffi in episode 3 are such a perfect pairing. I loved it. And in episode 3, when it was on Matalis Prime and them, I was happy. And when it switched back to the Titan, I went,
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. What did you think of? Obviously, we had Aaron Stanford playing Sneed, the Ferengi. You know, Ferengi obviously very well established. So seeing them in this, what did you think of all of that part?
I think that, I mean, I was hoping that Sneed was a character who had been in Star Trek somewhere else.
Right.
It just felt sort of basic. Yeah.
I thought it was a bit cruel when he made her take the drugs. I was like, yeah. You know, I mean, that's empathizing with the Raffi character and what we know of her from
previous.
But yeah, I'm just trying to think of more things before we move into sort of part 3 and 17 seconds. I'm just trying to think of any other bits in part 2 that I wanted to bring up. Can't think of anything. No, I think part 3. Okay, so in part 3, the first thing I thought, and it's, you know, and again, I understand we're up against budget and time scale when they produce these shows, so I get that. Even though they did a reasonably good job of the de-aging of Riker and Picard, and you could see Patrick Stewart was trying to act a bit more sprightly in his
Mhm.
performance, but they could have done with doing something with the voice, because that was the bit that didn't make me buy it. Was he still sounded like old man Picard and not the Picard from the movies.
I got bad news.
Right.
He is old.
Yeah, no, I know. But what I'm saying is that they can do things now.
Yeah.
Not only can they use CG to sort of de-age people, but they can actually do things with the voices as well. But I guess it would have taken time and money and stuff that they probably didn't have for that. But I thought Riker looked quite convincing.
Yeah.
The de-aged Riker. The only thing that kind of your laugh, the thing that somewhat annoyed me with this though, is they had the correct comm badge for that era. Yeah. But the uniform wasn't exactly the same. It's slightly tweaked again. And I'm like, how many times do they keep changing the damn uniforms? You know, because that was supposed to be what, 20, that was supposed to be like a year or two after Nemesis, wasn't it? I think 2381 or something like that. And but yeah, it was kind of I like that scene though in 10 Forward. What did you think? Did you like that flashback or no? What, too much foreshadowing?
Yeah, I mean, just like also like me and again, I might be putting too much of myself into this. Yeah, but I I don't like talking about my kids with people who don't have kids because I just feel like it's not something that they're going to be interested in. It's not something that they want to talk about or know about, right? And like in some cases, it can get super awkward where like it can make the person who doesn't have children start like trying to re-examine their life choices. And I'm like, no, 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 don't do that. That's not worth your time.
You're
So
talking to me now, Pete.
I'm trying to gloss over it. Don't
No,
re-examine.
I'm kidding.
Don't think about it. It's yeah. Look, Keith,
Yeah.
honest to God, best case scenario, 10 years, somebody shows up with a 20-year-old and it's like, hey, this is your kid. And you're like, oh, awesome. I skipped the hard part. Now we can just do the fully formed person, the fully formed person part.
Oh dear. Right.
Yeah.
Right, let's move off this one. Okay,
Yeah.
So we come
Exactly.
forward to present day, and so we've got the Titan in the nebula, and well, let's first of all talk about, so in part one we saw that Starfleet building basically get sort of sucked into a wormhole and then spewed out over the city, right? And they said like 170 lives were lost or something from that.
Yeah.
Now that was a weapon that was stolen from the Daystrom Institute, right, which is a Star Trek thing that we're very familiar with. Later in that episode they start deploying that as a weapon in space, and it kind of gives us sort of, I thought we've seen some X-Men superheroes possess this kind of power, where they can create a portal and jump through that and appear at 90 degrees or wherever they were. And it was quite interesting they were using that in space there. But the thing is, I feel that that's not the only super weapon that Vadik might have stolen from the Daystrom Institute. Maybe this should have been in the theories section, but I don't know. Have you got any thoughts of what else she might have stolen?
They had to have stolen some of the right, because didn't they in Voyager? No, Deep Space Nine. In Deep Space Nine, Starfleet developed the disease that was killing changelings.
Yeah.
They had to have it has to be related to that stuff, right? Yeah. And it's like such a non-specific weapon that is dealing with past,
Yeah.
what everyone considers dead history, that nobody's going to care about it.
Yeah.
They're going to bring this up.
The other thing that occurred to me was, again, in season 1, when Picard visits there to meet Jurati, she shows him the parts of Law, right? Actually, it's not Law. It was B4, wasn't it? Or was it Law?
Yeah.
It was B4.
No,
sorry. But she
B4.
shows, yeah. Now, obviously, I wish I didn't already know this, but you know, we talked about even on how last season, you know, trying to shoe Brent Spiner back into everything is becoming kind of, they got away with it in Enterprise, but the more times they do it, the less convincing it feels. and obviously the older he gets as an actor as well. But I've seen an image of a kind of an older Data looking character, and I just wonder whether they might have stolen that from the Daystrom Institute. I don't know.
I have not seen any images.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that's a spoiler then, and I didn't mean to spoil anything. Sorry.
That's all right. The only thing I've seen is the like poster image on Paramount Plus. When you bring it up to watch the show, it's an image of all of the characters, and Brent Spiner is in there. But I thought he looked like a Zoom character, not a Android character.
Oh, right. Okay. Maybe that's what it is then. Maybe that's what I've seen as well. I'm thinking of an image that I've seen that I kind of wished I hadn't straight away, but maybe it is the art that they've got on Paramount Plus. Or
and maybe they're going to go back. You know, honestly, it wouldn't be difficult for the synthetic body to start breaking down, and they go back to whatever Zoom it is who created the body, and they have another goodbye scene.
Oh no. No, not what, third time lucky.
Yeah, exactly.
What else? So I guess we're sort of creeping up to the bit where you started liking it again. But before we get to that, though, was there anything then in the earlier part of episode 3 or part 3 that really rubbed you up the wrong way, apart from the de-aging and talking about kids?
I just feel like the whole Titan chase is going so slow. It's been 3 episodes of them in a nebula, you know, stuck, and that just feels so slow to me.
Well, I mean, it's 2 to be fair, because they went into the nebula at the end of part 1.
Crusher started episode 1 in that nebula. It has been 3 episodes of a ship stuck in the nebula.
Right.
I'm standing firm in my criticism.
Okay. No, fair enough. What about let's talk about Worf before we move forward. So how are we feeling about Michael Dorn and what they've done with the Worf makeup and you know, his role in this so far?
He looks absolutely stunning and fantastic. Like, that's one guy who seems to like have benefited from HD, because he just looks better and better and better. Right? Like, so I was like, it's a very, I guess, you know, materialistic view of the character. He looks great, right? He looks so good, and he's acted. You know, his acting is fantastic. The character, I think, is right in line with the Worf that, you know, developed the most developed character in any Star Trek, right? Like,
well, the character that's literally had the most appearances than any other in Star Trek, because, you know, not only did he do 7 seasons of Next Gen, but he also did, like, I think it was 4 seasons of DS9, and he obviously appeared in Star Trek 6 playing an ancestor in that, and you know, now he's in. I think he does hold the record for the most appearances. than any other actor. And when you think about it, because his character originally was kind of tacked on. It was supposed to be a side character in the Next Generation, just to show that, you know, things had progressed and they now had a Klingon in Starfleet and whatever, but he wasn't going to be like a sort of major character. I mean, he was a bridge officer for a long time before he got made security chief. You know, it was when Tasha Yar exited and he sort of
Wasn't
stepped
that long?
So
Yeah.
a season. So, but yeah, no, Michael Dorn's killing it, and I like the way they've kind of aged Worf up. And yeah, it seems to make sense. I did like his thing about the chamomile tea. And do you want sugar? After his big sort of Worf speech, yeah.
Well, you know, in the afternoon, you don't need prune juice, right? That's
exactly
more like a morning or evening drink.
A warrior's drink. Yes, we all remember yesterday's Enterprise well. Yes, that's cool. So I guess and obviously they capture the character played by Thomas Dekker, who is the changeling. Did you twig any of this before it actually unraveled on screen?
No, and I didn't twig that because the first thing that happens is Jack fights the saboteur, punches him in the face, and his face goes all squiggy.
Yeah.
And I didn't read Changeling on that because that's not what happens in DS9 with Changelings.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad they didn't change the effect of how the changelings look in their sort of natural form, which pleased me, because obviously they've changed a lot of things, you know, in new Star Trek, obviously for modern audiences and screens and all of that sort of stuff, but they didn't change the design, you know, like they've changed design of some of the creatures, but they didn't really in this, and that they kept that effect looking like you know, which obviously in the 90s looked a bit dodgy even then, but yeah, I thought that was good. But yeah, so this is our first link to Deep Space Nine and the Dominion War and Odo's people and all of that sort of thing. And that's kind of, you know, you think, well, okay, so it does make you, I mean, it left lots of, even though I thought it was awesome, it left lots of questions why, because obviously, you know, the Dominion War ended. They went back to the what do they call it? The Great
Link.
The Great Link. Thank you. I was trying to think what the term was, and all that. That's where Odo ended up at the end of Deep Space Nine, and you know, that war was over. But I thought the same thing. I thought the masked helms people on the enemy ship could have well been Jem Hadar once this was revealed. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Yeah. So it finally got your interest at the end of part 3.
Yeah, at the end of part 3, I am now excited for next week.
Okay, great. Well, yeah. Anything else you want to add then? I mean, because I think we've pretty much covered it. I mean, obviously. You thought I got the impression you thought that the tension between Riker and Picard at the end then was a bit of a sudden turn.
Very sudden. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, because I did sort of, they were joking about him calling him number 1 not long beforehand, and then yeah. Okay. And any other thoughts?
No. I'm looking through my notes here. I hit everything I had.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm really on board with this. I'm actually okay. Let me ask you this question then. So, whereas you might have problems with it, and not, do you think it's an improvement on what we've had so far with Picard?
I don't know. What I will say is that, you know, I think in season 1 and in season 2, There were very good moments, and there were moments where I was like, oh, I want to see where this goes. But in both season 1 and season 2, I didn't really enjoy the whole ride, and it didn't deliver.
Oh my God!
What could have been, right?
Yeah.
There were the bases for some really great stuff in there.
Yeah.
And it just kind of fell short of what it could have been, which is in some ways like, even more depressing to me than shows where it just starts terrible and you never expect much and then it ends terribly, right? Whereas with Picard season 1 and 2, there's great stuff, and then it just and so what I was going to say is that, like, for the first 2.5 episodes of season 3, I was kind of like, well, this is just going to be terrible. Okay, let's see what happens. And now in the end of season 3, I'm like, oh no, this is great. But I have the, past memories of great stuff going terribly. And so I'm nervous that that's just what's going to happen.
Okay. Well, I'm really hoping they're going to stick the landing with this one. I'm enjoying it so far. Yes, there's a lot of fan servicey things going on. But if it tells a good story, I don't mind that. So we'll see. But okay, if you've got nothing to add, then we'll open a channel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh crap! I've jumped a bit. I just realised we didn't rank the episode before we do that. So okay, where would you rate this one then, Pete?
I am going to give this a lieutenant. 2 pips.
Okay. Where were you? I can't remember what you said last time.
I think it was junior grade or ensign. And to be fair, episode 2 for me is an ensign.
Okay.
But episode 3 is a lieutenant.
Okay. Well, for me, I would put episode 2 as a lieutenant commander and episode 3 as a commander.
Wow.
So it could still go further, but I'm digging it. I'm liking it.
I am glad you are enjoying it. It makes me very happy when people enjoy Star Trek, and I can separate out my own displeasures and just be appreciative of your happiness. So
cool.
Congratulations.
No worries. Well, Pete, where can people get in touch if they want to?
Okay, so you can find me on Twitter at Too Many E's. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can find our podcast, which is similar, at Let's See What's Out There on all good podcasting apps. Send us an email at lswotcast@gmail.com, or follow the podcast on social medias at lswotcast on all of the social medias. Keith, where can people find more of you and your work?
Yeah, well, obviously you're already on the channel Home Media Minefield. As I said, please check out some of the other work on this channel. As far as Let's See What's Out There goes, there's also our sister show, Let's See What's Out There Plus, on this channel. And that's where myself and Graham Williams are discussing The Mandalorian Season 3. In fact, Pete, you might find that our first episode quite interesting. But please check that out.
I've got to watch that.
Yeah. An episode dropped yesterday.
I haven't watched Commando yet, so I've got to watch the episode and then watch your recap.
Fair enough. You can also, as I said, I've done reviews on physical media, including the Star Trek movies on physical media, if you want to check that out. Also, if you want to see some of my creative work, I've got another YouTube channel which is called British Isles. That's EYLES, as in my last name, and there's some short films that I made on there. And it also leads me to thank Neil Myers for our the theme on this. Neil's work can be found at neilmyersmusic.com. So there we go, Pete. Another one. And Yeah, well, we'll be back next week to talk about episode or part, as they're doing on this, part 4, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. We'll try and get that recorded and out there. But yeah, please get in touch or put comments down below if you've got anything you want to say. And other than that, we'll see you next time on
Let's See What's Out There.
Bye for now.